time for the math. Okay, sorry, that was my Darth Vader. I know that's annoying. I'm going to switch here. Okay. All right. So today's lecture is about setting your baseline for either your municipality, or you can even follow this kind of methodology for your house if you're trying to do your family's footprint. So under the assignment module, you'll see something called Chautauqua blank and Chautauqua data. And so basically this is the Wise tool that I was talking about. And what you want to do is I'm going to just walk you through it. There's a few data sheets. The first one will say Wise. Let's see if I can bring it up. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. Greenhouse gas baseline tool. So the first thing you do is just enter in your name and enter in your baseline year. You want to always make sure you fill in as many notes as you can, because after a year you're going to go back and say, oh, what assumption did I make? So it's really good to get in the habit of detailing out everything you need. So when you start, you're going to first bring up the raw data, and that will have utility data, transportation data, solid waste, and recycling. And so you're basically going to plug those numbers in to come up with what your greenhouse gas baseline is. So on the first sheet, you'll see utility data, and you'll see different meters, and under each meter there's like a drop-down tool. So whenever there's a little arrow, make sure you're using it. It might be electrical consumption in kilowatt hours, it might be natural gas in therms. So make sure you're using the right descriptor. So if it's water, you have to make sure you're in gallons. And this is when doing your baseline gets a little complicated. Because what will happen is sometimes you'll get, if you're at a municipality, sometimes you might get data from an office in therms. And then you might get data from your wastewater treatment plant in decatherms. Or you might get data from your trash hauler in cubic yards, or your recycling in tons or pounds. And so you have to make sure the unit that your raw data is in, and make sure you use that drop-down tool to put it in the right way. So for utility data, you're going to be entering electrical consumption, you're going to be entering natural gas, and you're going to be entering water. A lot of times they'll break it out into consumptive water and non-consumptive use. At some municipalities, you might be using raw water, and that's not going to be treated, so that won't have as big of a footprint. So those are things to think about. Then when you get to transportation, there's a few ways you could do it. Sometimes you might have vehicle miles traveled. The way I get that is from when people charge on their P cards, on their purchase cards. Some people enter their data based on the fueling stations, if you have fueling stations. So if you want to do vehicle mile travel, I don't put in people commuting back and forth to work. And so these are just assumptions you make, and you have to decide how you're going to do it and just be consistent. And then what you have to do is you break it down by fuel type. So gas, biodiesel, propane, compressed natural gas, E85, all these things are measuring out the carbon output. So like E85, 85% of that mix is ethanol. The other 15% might be unleaded gas. And so they have different conversion factors for everything, and that's why it's important to make sure you're putting everything in the right column so it corresponds to the right conversion. The other thing is airline travel. So airline travel has a huge impact. How you can do airline travel is, I have a great database, so if you want to really do this for your company, just let me know. And I have a lot of cities around the country. And so Las Vegas, I think it's 789 miles. So say 19 people from your company went to Vegas. All you do is you put in 19 into the database, and it'll click out the total miles. And then finally, there's solid waste and recycling. And again, all the different inputs. So the landfill is usually in cubic yards. A lot of times you have to estimate your cubic yards of trash, and how you do that is just you have to know the number of containers, the size of containers, and the frequency of pickups. Or if you have a good vendor, they might just give you the number. And then the different commodities that get recycled have different conversion factors, so you have to enter them separately. So things you usually put in: cardboard, glass, aluminum, steel, plastics, mixed paper. Some people do it commingled. And then you can also do food waste. And food waste is if you're composting or if you have a green cone and you just estimate how much food is not going into the landfill. The important thing about food waste and organic waste, just so you know, if food waste and organic waste go to the landfill, there's anaerobic digestion, which means it doesn't get any air and it creates methane. If you're composting in your yard or putting things in a green cone, the mixture gets exposed to oxygen and then doesn't produce methane, which, as we talked about, is 21 times more harmful than just carbon dioxide. So you want to try to reduce methane as much as you can. And so that's the connection between recycling and greenhouse gases. Okay, so transportation data, you're going to put in your solid waste and recycling data. And then the last page will show you what your output of greenhouse gases is in tons. Some people just talk about the gross annual baseline. So that's all the greenhouse gases you're putting out. Some municipalities actually take credit for their recycling, and on this sheet that's down at the bottom, that's like your net. So that's another assumption you make. Are you going to do your gross or are you going to do your net? And so put that all in, and then you're going to post that up on the assignment board. Another thing I just wanted to talk about is I mentioned in the announcements that I did put up some other carbon calculators if you want to look at them. I wanted to give you some just sort of generic information about greenhouse gas equivalent, so you just have something to work with. So basically 1 kilowatt of electricity is equal to about 1 pound of CO2. It's almost a 1-to-1, but it depends on where you get your electricity. So if your electricity is all from coal, it's dirtier. If your electricity is a little from wind, a little from coal, then the mix is different, and obviously the outputs are different. When most people do their calculators, they do it according to their e-grid, their electricity grid. And there's some generic grids for the different parts of the country. On the Climate-Wise, we use the one for the Front Range. So that's one of the reasons I like the Climate-Wise. Some other things, green power. So if you're trying to convince your city or your community members to buy green power, every kilowatt of electricity from wind, you're reducing 1 pound of CO2. Natural gas basically is one therm equals 12 pounds. Then heating oil, 1 gallon is 22 pounds. So you can start to see heating by oil versus heating by wind. Some other good ones to know: vehicle, basically 1 gallon of gas is 22 pounds of CO2. Air travel is almost a 1-to-1, so every mile is a pound of CO2. And of course this varies. Are you on a jet? Are you, what's the size of the airline? But that's a basic generic, just so you know. 1 pound of garbage produces 1.5 pounds of CO2. That's, again, why we're stressing recycling. And then this is one of my favorite ones. 1 tree consumes or takes in 25 pounds of CO2 each year for 30 years. So there's a great reason to plant trees. We're doing our Earth Day celebration in Fort Collins. It's going to be tree planting. So I just wanted to walk you through that. If you're having any trouble, either give me a call or send me an email. And again, you could use this greenhouse baseline tool. I'm sorry, my dog is barking. for your own municipality, but